Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I often get asked if there are any therapies that can be done effectively on yourself. Hand reflexology is certainly one of these. And today I would like to introduce you to hand reflexology, some of the techniques that can be used and a basic routine. Hand reflexology is a relaxing treatment that helps you unwind at times of stress and anxiety. Many of you will have heard of foot reflexology, but if you've got a foot injury, or indeed if you've got ticklish feet, or if you find trying to do foot reflexology quite uncomfortable, then hand reflexology is a very good alternative. And some people just prefer working on the hands to the feet. Reflexology is about treating the whole person. That feel-good factor can have a major impact on people's overall sense of well-being. And the idea today is just to provide you with a little glimpse into this therapy. Hopefully, if it stimulates your interest, you can take it to the next level, research it a little bit more, or indeed think about becoming a reflexologist yourself. I recently came across a diagram in a hand reflexology book that I was reading. I've got this book here, and it's by Stephanie Sabuchian, and she's the Vice President of the World Reflexology Foundation and serves on the board of directors of the Reflexology Association of America. So very experienced reflexologist. And when I was going through the introductory part of the book, I came across this diagram, which really helps to explain the idea and the links between the body and the hand. So she has a very clear diagram here of the body, which she has divided into 6 regions. And they correspond in colour coordination across to the hands. So here, for example, at the top, you have this purple colour, which refers to the head and the neck of the body. And in her diagram, she corresponds across to that area that links to the left palm of the hand and the left back. So as you go down the body, she labels the corresponding parts, and it's a very visual way of understanding what hand reflexology is about. And I found it a very helpful visual to start with, and we'll be coming back to this book at various times over the course of the video. So before we get into talking about some basic techniques and moving forward to an actual routine, we need to think about preparing for the actual treatment. So obviously the first thing to do is begin with washing your hands. And as always, I'm going to put a drop of aromatherapy oil. This is just lavender. It's a wonderful smell already diffusing from that. So I'm just going to make sure that I rinse my hands. And I just find that really helps to relax your hands as well. The water is slightly warm, so it's very welcoming. just pop this to one side for now. So what I'm going to do next is just inspect my hands as I normally would on any treatment with a client. And it's useful if you're checking your own hands, because sometimes you can't pick up things like bruises or cuts, which might cause a contraindication and cause you pain while you're doing reflexology treatments. So it's certainly worth just giving your hands a quick once over with the magnifying glass, just to check for anything that might prevent you from doing a treatment. And you're looking in particular for things like bruising or cuts. Sometimes you just get little paper cuts from normal everyday usage, and it's useful to know that they're there. Doesn't always mean that you have to stop the treatment, but it is useful to know, especially if something is very tender. You might want to work around that particular area. So that is all okay, and we are good to go. So after you've relaxed by cleaning your hands, the next stage is to try and do some basic relaxation moves. So we have a few that I can suggest, but there are many from other books that are suggested, but these are the ones that I like to use. And the first one is a little rocking move like this, sometimes called the sandwich. And while you're doing this, you could take some deep breaths as well, just so that you can relax yourself a bit more. Remember, this is all about self-care. Then maybe a little bit of wrist rotation here. Maybe some finger pulls, just to loosen that up so it's nice and relaxed when you come to do your reflexology moves. And another nice one is doing a little bit of a roll. Various names given to this one, could be fist on palm, but I just call it a fist roll. There's a nice area in there that you want to really relax. Now, some people might want to pop a pillow here so that your hand is nice and relaxed, or a towel. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I'm not going to do that because it tends to merge into your hand and you don't get to see everything. But that might be quite nice to get you more relaxed for the treatment. The next stage is to become familiar with some of the basic techniques of reflexology. And I will be using Stephanie Sabushian's book to guide me through some of those basic moves. I use these clips just to hold the pages back. Tip I got from a friend ages ago: if you're looking at some of these textbooks, they tend to fold up as you're trying to read. So these are actually old hair grips. So useful tip there. just to keep that side down, and then you can clip it under as you go along. So one of the first moves that Stephanie suggests you get used to is something called the thumb roll. And I'm going to use her diagrams here, which are very clear. So she said this is the main reflexology technique that can be used on most surfaces of the hand. It's a high thumb roll. So you're looking for the thumb to move quite freely across there. Now I'm doing this quite slowly. In reflexology, you would actually do it quite quickly like this. Some people refer to this as the caterpillar move, and it is the one that you use the most. Your thumbs are actually much stronger than your fingers, so and you do strengthen them when you do reflexology, but walking like this, she calls the thumb roll. What I also like about her book is she's got some wonderful little hints and suggestions. So one thing here is about hydration. It's important to hydrate before and after reflexology sessions to flush the system of any impurities. And I think when you are working on the energy pathways of the body, you can dehydrate quite easily. So make sure that you've got some water to hand and do hydrate when you need to. Now, a couple of the other diagrams she's got here is where the thumb roll that she's talking about can be made slightly higher when the depth needs to go in a little bit more. So you roll up to the tip of your thumb and put a little bit more emphasis there. So you've got the general one, and then you've got one that's a little bit higher that adds more depth. So let's move on to one of the other moves that she's suggesting here. And this is a finger roll. So similar to the thumb roll, the finger roll is useful on the back of the thumb and fingers and for reflexing in the grooves between the long bones on the back of the hand. So place the pad of your index finger onto the tissue and apply gentle pressure. Maintaining that gentle pressure, start bending the finger at the joint below the nail and roll all the way up onto the tip of your index finger. Then come back to your starting position with the pad of your finger on the tissue. It does say here another hint. When using the finger roll, keep in mind that the joints of the fingers are not as strong as the thumb joints, so do not overuse the index finger. Her next move is a two-finger roll, and the two-finger roll is mostly used on the back of the fingers and on the wrist as well. So place the tips of your index and middle fingers next to each other on the tissue, so like this, and apply gentle pressure. And maintaining that same pressure, bend both fingers at the joint below the nail and roll up onto the tips of your index and middle fingers, and then come back to the starting position with the pad of your finger on the tissue. So that would be your two-finger roll. And then we also have a three-finger roll. So that's on this hand. And then you're applying pressure and then bend the fingers and roll away. Then another technique is the hold and rotate technique. This technique can be used anywhere on the palm of your hand. It can help calm reflex areas when they are too sensitive to be worked on with the thumb or finger rolls. Place the pad of your working thumb on the tissue, apply gentle pressure, and hold for a few minutes. And then, maintaining the same pressure, start slow circular movements. Make sure you don't slide on the skin, but simply move the skin underneath your thumb. So you're just moving rather than moving across it. Then we have something called the web squeeze. Now, the web squeeze is exactly what it says. You have various webs in between these fingers. You have the main one here, and you would literally squeeze this area very gently and hold the web that you see there between the thumb and finger. So you've got thumb there, finger there. Now, there is a cautionary note here. So if you are pregnant, do not squeeze the big web, which is this one. You can, however, safely reflex the small webs as described below. So place the tip of the index finger in the small web on the back of the hand between two fingers, like that. Or you can go underneath like that. And then you have the final basic technique, which is called the hold and stretch technique. So you use this technique when working in the grooves between the long bones on the back of the hand. So basically like this. You can do that with 3 fingers as well. And those are the basic techniques that Stephanie is suggesting we use throughout her routine, which we will get to shortly. So in her book, she does set out a full routine. What I really like about this book is that she's not using a model to work on, or the book isn't written as though you're working on your partner. The book is designed for self-care, so very much aimed at you learning how to do this yourself and how to treat yourself. So do follow me in a moment as I work through her suggested moves. So before we move towards doing a routine, I just want to talk to you a little bit about reflexology. So reflexology, like many Eastern therapies, is largely about unblocking the energy lines and increasing that flow of chi and stimulating your body's own healing mechanism. Some studies in the last decade have looked at its benefits, particularly some studies in Denmark and the United States, with some evidential success. But we are a long way off completion of clinical evidential studies, and much of the evidence is still anecdotal. Therefore, reflexologists do not diagnose illness or practice medicine. And if you are suffering from a chronic illness or you are medically being treated, then I would suggest that you consult your medical practitioner first. And particularly if you are pregnant, you may want to leave this till after the first trimester. What reflexologists do, however, is study the body's systems, and they familiarise themselves with the physiology of the hands and the feet. So, if you are planning to do reflexology, please do some research and enjoy reading about the benefits of a little me time, taking time out to do that research, really by looking at some of these holistic therapies. Now, normally when we do a treatment, I would use something like aromatherapy oils, but in this instance, this is one treatment where you don't want to put loads of oil on the hands because you need to be able to grip the skin and areas of the hands. But if you want to, you could use a cream or a cornstarch, or there are some new reflexology waxes that allow you still to have that grip where you need to work through the reflex points. But you certainly don't want the hands to be covered in oil, as you need to maintain that contact. Positive touch during reflexology stimulates the release of oxytocin, encouraging relaxation, and regular treatments can help you feel calmer and even improve your sleep. But this will require a number of treatments. Self-care approaches like this can put you in control of your ability to manage stress and increase relaxation, and can be quite empowering, creating a much more positive frame of mind. So, with that in mind, what we're going to move to now is the full routine that Stephanie is suggesting we do. So, I'll just read through her introduction here. She says, applied regularly, this simple but powerful hand reflexology routine can help boost your immune system and keep away little aches and pains. The routine works through 6 regions of the hands, and once you have practiced each region, you can combine all the steps into a flowing routine for both hands that takes less than 20 minutes to complete. What I really like is the way that she has put this together. The first page, with regard to this particular region, which is the head and neck region, gives you a little bit of information about that. So here we've got the fingers and thumbs represent the head and neck region in the body. And again, useful visuals there. And then she goes on to take us through the basic routine using visuals. I have not done this routine yet because I really wanted this to be an honest learning experience that I share with you. So I'm going to walk through this and follow her guidance and share that experience with you. So obviously one of the first things we're going to do is work on one hand, and I'm going to use my worker hand, which is the right hand because that's my dominant hand, and I'm going to work along the left hand. What you would do normally is work the left hand and then switch over and do the right hand, but I'm just going to demonstrate walking through the routine on the left hand. Now, I think it's personal choice. You can switch constantly, or you can do the left hand first and then move on to the right. I think it's entirely up to you. But obviously, the key thing here is for you to become familiar with her techniques, what she's suggesting, and a routine. I have come across other routines Louise Keat, for example, is one of my favourite reflexologists, and she does a routine as well. And Anne Jalanders is another one that I have used. But again, their routine is a little different because it's done through modelling and partnering. And with Stephanie, she even calls this a practice for promoting self-care. So let's see if this actually works for us. So I'm literally going to now work my way through her routine. So let's look at the first diagram here. With the palm up, place the fingers of the working hand underneath the fingers of the hand being reflexed. Begin a thumb roll at the top of the index finger, working towards the palm until you reach the base of the finger. So we'll do that now. And then repeat on both sides of the index finger. So we'll do to the side of that, and we'll do on the other side. And if you get lost, there are some very clear directional arrows as to the direction you should be going in and the area that you should be covering, and you simply do that on the other fingers using that. So I call it the caterpillar move. She's calling it a thumb roll. Right, and the next diagram, turn the hand over, place the thumb of the working hand under the index finger, use a 2-finger roll to reflex from the nail bed to the base of the finger. Actually, it's easier if you tuck those fingers out the way. Repeat to the middle, the ring, and the little finger. And then you can decide to do it on the other hand or not. Then we've got place the thumb to be reflexed palm side up on 4 fingers of the working hand for support. Okay, so 4 fingers underneath the thumb. Begin a thumb roll from the top of the thumb horizontally across the surface of the thumb. Lift off and repeat the action, working downwards towards the palm. And then we're turning the hand over to reflex the nail side of the thumb. Place the thumb pad on the 4 fingers of the working hand and then use a thumb roll across the surface. So start at the nail. Then go down to the knuckle. There we go. And as I said, if you lose your place or you don't understand some of the things she's referring to, it's very, very clear from the diagram. I am actually liking this routine. So that's interesting. That's working quite well. So the next region is the chest region. So the knuckles below the thumb and fingers here represent the chest region in the body. So let's look at doing those now. resting your fingers underneath the hand that you're doing your reflex moves on. And again, you're using that caterpillar move and you're covering this area. And then you're working vertically upwards to cover this area. And then she's suggesting we use the thumb roll on the palm side of the knuckle between the thumb and the palm, working from the diaphragm line upwards to the shoulder line. I don't find that easy to do, actually. I think I'm going to go in this way. Maybe I've got shorter fingers. Yeah, I'm going to have to do that. I can't do that. Maybe that would take a little bit of practice to get over there. I think I'd prefer to do it that way, adapt. And then this one is with the fingers of the working hand on the back of the thumb being reflexed. Use a thumb roll sideways, reflexing the palm side of the thumb. There we go. So slightly lower down the thumb that you were doing earlier. So in the slightly fleshy part of your thumb. So you're edging from the edge of the thumb underneath that area into the palm. Yep, that works. Ooh, this is a slightly longer one. So to reflex the back of the thumb knuckle, place the index and middle fingers of the working hand behind the thumb being reflexed. Work a thumb roll horizontally across the knuckle. Work with light pressure and reflex gently over any tendons. Then use a thumb roll to reflex the knuckle vertically now. Start at the shoulder line and working towards the diaphragm line. Okay, so you're starting sort of halfway down the thumb, covering that area there. Then we're working the small webs between the fingers. Okay. Okay. Between the little finger and the ring finger. And then reflexing towards the fingers. So I think that's more of a move between there rather than what I'm doing, which is a sort of hook move. So I've got that slightly wrong. So let's do that again. Repeat. Yeah. So you're actually moving to cover these webs. And then use the index and middle fingers to hold and stretch each of the grooves. Oh, that's an interesting one. So coming round this way. So to hold and stretch each of the grooves between the long bones on the back of the hand. Oh, this was like this 2-finger rolls and sets. Place the thumb of your working hand on the palm for support. Use gentle pressure and slow stretches. Repeat the stretch in each groove several times. Right, so I get that. So it's the grooves. I've got very narrow ones, but it is this groove in between that you're pulling to hold that hold and stretch move. Oh, that was quite interesting. And then the next region is the upper and mid abdomen region, and that covers quite a lot of the area of the middle part of the body. So let's move on to that one now. So we're moving down from the head chest area into the abdomen area. So place your thumb below the knuckle under the little finger on the palm side. Support the back of the hand with the fingers of the working hand. Thumb roll across the palm to the opposite edge. Repeat a few times to help relax the diaphragm, and then continue to make horizontal passes, working down a little with each pass until you reach the pelvic line at the heel of the hand. Okay. And then we're working a thumb roll upwards between the pelvic line and the diaphragm line. So start just above the heel of your hand on the outer edge and roll up until you reach the knuckles. So with each vertical pass, work a little closer to the thumb until you have reached the big web between the index and thumb finger. So turn the hand and place the thumb of the working hand in the big web close to the bone of the index finger. So that's this one here at the base of the thumb. Place the tip of the index finger on the opposite side, so that's that one, and squeeze the web gently between finger and thumb. Roll the thumb and index finger upward until you reach the web, the end of the big web, and repeat that several times. And then reflex the back of the hand below the knuckles with a 3-finger roll. So place the tips of the index, middle and ring fingers at the outer edge of the hand being reflexed just below the knuckles, and then roll the fingers. Oh, you're going to have to hold your hand up to do that, actually. Obviously, if you were on a pillow, that would make it much easier. Although she's not stating this, I would instinctively want to do 3 passes of all of these moves. Okay, so the next region is the lower abdomen and the pelvic region. So the heels of the hands represent the lower abdomen and the pelvic region. So you can read a little bit about that, but we're going to go straight in to do the routine across here. So with the fingers of the working hand on the back of the hand for support, place the thumb at the pelvic line where the palm meets the heel of the hand under the little finger. There we go. So level with that and across there. Work a thumb roll horizontally across the surface until you reach the opposite edge of the hand, and repeat the action at intervals until you reach the wrist. And then place the working thumb on the wrist, okay, below the little finger, with the fingers behind the wrist and hand for support. I've automatically done that. So use a thumb roll to reflex upward until you reach the pelvic line, which is where you started before. Repeat the action at intervals with each pass, working a little closer to the thumb. Okay, and then we've got reflex the wrist with a 2-finger roll on the back of the hand. Place the working index and ring fingers next to each other on the wrist at the edge of the hand, under the little finger, and roll all the way across. Oh, I think that's further down actually, all the way across to the opposite edge. Right, then we have the midline and spinal region. So the edge of the hand just inside the thumb bone represents the midline and spinal region. So we're moving to the midline and spinal region, and the edge of the hand just inside the thumb bone represents the midline and spinal region of the body. So let's look at what we're covering there. So we're literally working along this thumb line. Right, if you feel tenderness at any point, hold and rotate gently on the sore area for a couple of minutes or until the tenderness eases before moving on. So if you get any tenderness in that area, and obviously this is along the spinal area, so if you've got tenderness there, you might find that you've got tender points along here. What she's suggesting is just hold and rotate if you have any tenderness along that. And then place the working thumb on the inside edge of the thumb being reflexed at the nail bed. Thumb roll down to the knuckle between the thumb and the palm. And again, she says repeat the action several times. I would suggest 3 in number to start you off until you get used to the routine. And then if you feel like taking it up past 3, then do that. Okay, so let's move. I think this might be this final region. So let's move to the arm and leg region. So the edge of the hands between the wrists and the little fingers represent the reflexes for the shoulder joints, the arms, the elbows, the wrists and hands, as well as the hips, legs, knees, ankles and feet, and ovaries in women and testes in men. So let's look at how she's covering this. So place the thumb on the outer edge of the hand, close to the wrist, under the little finger. Yeah. Wrap the fingers of the working hand around the wrist for support, and thumb roll up just over the slight protrusion above the wrist, about 1/3 of the way up the edge, working the leg reflexes. So just this small area here. So now point the tip of the working thumb towards the palm, bend the thumb to a high roll and pause. You are now on the knee reflex. So pause in this position or make small circular motions for 1 minute. So to work the arm reflexes, start a thumb roll at the wrist again and work all the way up until you reach the base of the little finger, and repeat this several times. Finish by working just a small area directly below the base of the little finger to help relax the shoulder joint, and I can feel that. I do suffer with shoulder issues, and I can really feel that. There we go. Okay, interesting. Right, and I believe that takes us to the end of the routine that Stephanie is taking us through. I actually quite enjoyed that. I'm quite enthusiastic to go through this, and it's a very clear self-care routine. Now, obviously, what you would do is you would work your way through the routine, but you do your left hand first and then you do your right hand. So you could go back and do the whole routine on your right hand in this instance, working with your left hand. But I think we've got the general idea of this, and I'm really pleased to be sharing this with you. I'm quite excited to find a routine that I'm very comfortable with and is very focused on self-care. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the routine. And just to finish off, what I'd like to do is just some more relaxation moves. So you can do the similar moves that we did at the start, such as the wrist rocking. You could do some finger rotations, as we did before. You could do some wrist drainage moves or some wrist rotations. And then also what would be good is just to do a solar plexus push in, just to clear that at the end. And then one thing I would suggest is, because we didn't put any oil at the beginning, what you might find is that your hands get a little bit dry. So it might be worth just putting a little bit of maybe a carrier oil. I've got a tiny bit of coconut oil here. Just rubbing that over your hands. We'll just take that dryness away. Make sure you do get into your palms here as well. Actually, that feels nice to give it a little bit of a palm move there. And then to finish, I would probably do some deep breathing as well. So I hope you've enjoyed sharing that new experience with me of this new routine that I've discovered. Thank you for sharing this experience with me.